Larry, an astronaut, crashes on an alien planet. Struggling to survive, he encounters Vetra, a native alien with piercing yellow eyes. Despite their initial hostility, their lives become intertwined as they face the planet's deadly challenges together. Every decision could mean survival or doom. How far would you go when trust is your only lifeline against ethical conflicts? If you want to dive into real stories of parallel realities every day, in enigmatic, technological worlds that are completely different from our planet, subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Well, let's go. The void of space is vast and unending, a cold expanse where stars are mere pinpricks of light amid the darkness. Larry, a seasoned astronaut with graying hair, rugged features, and a stoic demeanor, had always harbored a fascination for this great unknown. His mission, however, had not catered to the wonderment of exploration but rather the survival of humanity. Now, he found himself staring at the smoldering wreckage of his once mighty spaceship, the NSS Galileo, which lay like a broken bird on an alien planet. This planet, unnamed and unexplored, greeted him with an eerie sky that blazed a surreal shade of purple, a sharp contrast to the familiar blues and greens of Earth. The atmosphere felt tangibly hostile, each breath a raspy challenge as the air stung his lungs. Jagged mountains and treacherous craters stretched as far as the eye could see, and the ground beneath him was an amalgam of harsh, unforgiving rock and dust. Larry's training had prepared him for many things: technical malfunctions, isolation, resourcefulness, but nothing could have braced him for the sheer desolation that now enveloped him. Alone, except for the omnipresent rustling of wind against foreign stone, he began surveying the wreckage for anything salvageable. Emergency protocols dictated that he collect what he could, but the reality of his predicament pressed heavily upon him. Each tool, each piece of debris he collected felt like a mockery of survival against such insurmountable odds. In this landscape of ruin and silence, Larry's solitary existence was abruptly interrupted. Standing upon a ridge, outlined against the impossible purple sky, was Vetra. She moved with a fluid grace that belied the intensity of her bright, almost luminescent blue-silver skin. Her eyes, a piercing yellow, glowed with an intelligence and suspicion that registered even from a distance. Vetra's body seemed to be an elegant composition of smooth contours and sinewy strength, each movement deliberate and poised for action. From a distance, they scrutinized each other, two beings from disparate worlds bound by a singular, uncanny predicament. Larry's hand instinctively moved to the hilt of his utility knife, a symbol of his resolve to protect himself. Vetra, in turn, shifted her stance, her body language screaming defensiveness. The initial encounter was devoid of words, filled instead with a primal recognition of the stranger's potential for both danger and salvation. Desperation outweighed mistrust as Larry attempted to initiate a primitive form of communication. The silence of the alien terrain was punctuated by his gestures and Vetra's cautious responses. Slowly, they pieced together fragments of understanding, gestures of utility, survival techniques, intentions of neither harm nor hostile overtures. Vetra, displaying her own brand of pragmatism, grudgingly began to lower her guard. As Larry maneuvered through the jagged terrain, his eyes constantly scanned for both resources and threats. The arid ground cracked at his feet, each step a reminder of the planet's unyielding nature. He realized the importance of securing a stable energy source from the fragments of technology littering the crash site. Amid these fragments, he found a power node, a small but critical component that might sustain his dwindling reserves. While Larry worked meticulously to repair the node amidst the planet's brutal environment, he noticed Vetra watching him, albeit with wariness. She eventually approached, her curiosity getting the better of her hostility. Their interaction was tense, a dance of glances and gestures, but it became clear that Vetra possessed knowledge about the planet that Larry lacked. Unwillingly thrust together by circumstances beyond their control, they formed a tenuous alliance based on a shared need for survival. Vetra's presence added a strange, new dynamic to Larry's struggle. Her ethereal quality contrasted sharply with the harshness of the surroundings. As he labored to connect the energy node, her eyes never left his hands, studying his every move with a mixture of suspicion and fascination. It was through these small reparative tasks that Larry began to realize the planet's deeper complexities, a realization mirrored by the changing expressions on Vetra's face. The repaired energy node hummed to life, its soft glow a beacon in the purplish gloom. Vetra's reaction was unexpected. Her eyes widened, and she emitted a low, resonant tone that seemed to harmonize with the hum. Larry understood from her response that these nodes were not just artifacts, they were integral to the planet's life force, currently withering away. The realization hit hard. The planet's feeble pulse echoed the delicate balance of their newfound partnership. The landscape around them seemed to shift in subtle ways, a reflection of the fragile truce they had established. Alien flora, hidden beneath layers of dust and stone, began to reveal themselves, reacting to the node's energy. It was as if they had inadvertently tapped into the planet's vascular system, granting them a glimpse of its organic complexity. This was no barren wasteland. It was a living entity struggling against decay, much like the delicate thread of camaraderie between Larry and Vetra. This realization didn't ease the tensions, however. The frailty of their alliance was mirrored by the planet's state. Every attempt to move forward was marred by mistrust and the lethal elements surrounding them. Horrific storms whipped the surface, fierce winds cutting through their makeshift encampment like angry specters of the planet's past. The heat was relentless, oppressive, each day testing their resolve as they scoured for resources and shelter. As they journeyed deeper into the alien wilderness, the precarious equilibrium of their relationship repeatedly teetered on the edge. Despite their best efforts, the toxic environment and ceaseless tempests drove wedge after wedge between them. Vetra's fierce independence often clashed with Larry's methodical approach, their differing survival instincts at odds, yet interdependently vital. Desperation brought moments of unforeseen unity. During a particularly vicious sandstorm, they took refuge in a natural cave, its entrance concealed by the swirling dust. Inside, the atmosphere grew thick with tension and the ever-present threat of collapse. Here, in the belly of the planet, Larry and Vetra momentarily found reprieve from the outside chaos. A reluctant silence grew between them, understanding that the storm outside reflected the inner turmoil they shared. As hours turned to days, the confines of the cave became a crucible for their interaction. Mutual benefit dictated collaboration. Vetra, though initially aloof, began to share fragments of her knowledge, her people's history, their rituals and culture that intertwined deeply with the planet's rhythms. Larry's practical ingenuity coupled with Vetra's native expertise forged a tentative synchronization between them. The energy node they carried became more than a life-sustaining device. It was a symbol of their interdependence. Vetra's wary glances softened marginally as Larry's actions demonstrated consistent reliability. Mistrust hangs heavy between Larry and Vetra as they navigate the alien world. Surrounded by an iridescent sky that alternates between hues of burning orange and deep purple, the landscape seems both beautiful and deadly. Metallic disc-shaped flora that glow faintly at night and bioluminescent fungi give the environment an eerie glow. The initial moments after their encounter are marred by an uneasy silence. Larry scrutinizes Vetra, her blue-silver skin shimmering under the alien sun, and her piercing yellow eyes never leave his form. He notices the exotic markings on her body, likely symbols of her cultural heritage, but he dares not ask about them. Trust is nearly impossible to forge when survival is on the line. Larry is a seasoned astronaut, driven by scientific curiosity and a relentless will to thrive. Day and night, he finds himself repairing an essential energy node, an ancient relic of the planet's advanced yet forgotten civilization. As he works, he repeatedly glances at Vetra, who skeptically observes from a distance. His hands move expertly, welding and connecting wires with deft precision, yet his mind races with uncertainty. Could Vetra be trusted? Is she an ally or a hidden threat? During a rare moment of vulnerability, Vetra approaches. She communicates using ethereal hand gestures and guttural sounds that Larry can barely interpret. But the essential message is clear. The nodes are vital to the life force of the planet, a planet now withering away. Each node is a pillar, supporting not just the ecological balance but the very soul of this world. The planet mirrors their fragile relationship, battered by lethal storms and relentless heat. Tempests of corrosive rain sweep across the land, dissolving rock and flora alike. The sun, which seems unnaturally close, blazes down upon them, creating mirages on the horizon. Amidst these trials, Larry and Vetra find themselves contending with more than just the environment. They face internal battles. Larry's nostalgia for Earth, his guilt over his crew's death, and his lingering skepticism toward Vetra. For Vetra, the struggle is one of loss, for she is the last of her kind, and the planet's dying heartbeat is a reminder of her solitary existence. Their journey is abruptly disrupted by a catastrophic event. A violent quake, far more intense than any Larry has experienced on Earth, shatters the ground beneath their feet. Massive chasms open up, threatening to swallow them whole. Amid the panic, Larry's instinct takes over. He grabs Vetra's arm, leading her to a precarious safety ledge. As they cling to the edge, he realizes that their proximity has forged an unspoken agreement. They are in this together. The seismic activity calms, but the tension does not. Larry, desperate to prove his worth and extend an olive branch, focuses on the damaged energy node. The node is a labyrinth of alien technology combined with organic components that seem to pulse with the heartbeat. As he repairs it, intricate patterns of bioluminescent circuits light up, and Vetra's demeanor shifts from skepticism to cautious hope. These nodes, vital parts of an interdependent system, are a lifeline. Success is short-lived. Another storm, more brutal and acrid than the one before, descends upon them. The air fills with a toxic mist, reducing visibility to a mere few feet. Forced to take shelter in a nearby cave, Larry and Vetra face a grueling onslaught of natural forces and invasive thoughts. Outside, the storm rages with raw fury. Bursts of lightning illuminate the downpour, revealing shadowy figures lurking just beyond the threshold of safety. The cave grants no reprieve. Inside, it's dark and damp, a narrow space teeming with phosphorescent minerals that emanate a cold, unsettling light. The echoes of dripping water are accompanied by the distant, ominous calls of unseen creatures. Here, Larry and Vetra's relationship is once again tested. Survival depends on their ability to trust one another. They fasten makeshift barriers, using slabs of rock and vines, an endeavor that requires synchronicity and silent communication. In the claustrophobic confines, survival becomes a test of endurance and creativity. Larry constructs a rudimentary filtration system using the spare parts in his suit and elements from their surroundings, providing them with clean water. Vetra unearths edible fungi from fissures in the cave walls, her knowledge of the native flora invaluable. Each effort to survive creates a small yet significant bond between them. Larry's work on the energy node is not without consequences. Every attempt to restore balance seems to provoke a retaliatory reaction from the planet. The storms grow fiercer, the Earth more treacherous. It becomes an agonizing cycle. Their survival actions inadvertently trigger greater challenges. Perhaps the planet itself is aware of their endeavors and resists their interference. Driven by necessity, The most unlikely partnerships sometimes prove the strongest. Vetra begins to assist him in repairing the node. Her hands, though differing in anatomy, work in fine harmony with Larry's. She demonstrates an intuitive grasp of the technology, likely remnants of her species' ancient knowledge. Their collaboration turns into a delicate dance, a brief symphony of fingers, tools, and beeps of the alien machinery. Through the haze of constant struggle, glimmers of trust start to appear. Larry notices Vetra's glances soften. What began as suspicion is slowly morphing into an implicit understanding. However, the environment leaves them no time to reflect on their budding alliance. The planet's fury persists, and their vulnerabilities are exposed by each subsequent challenge. The hostile environment's relentlessness is a constant reminder of their precarious situation. Lethal flora eject spores into the air, and previously placid geysers of superheated steam burst without warning, turning passageways into death traps. As parts of the landscape ignite spontaneously due to volatile gases, Larry and Vetra realize that they must move rapidly if they are to preserve the remaining energy nodes. Yet, the elemental ferocity of the planet also presents an undeniable beauty, a harsh, magnificent landscape that neither Larry nor Vetra can ignore. Twin moons rise in the distance, bathing the rocky terrain in celestial light. Fluid-like rock rivers mirror the star-studded sky, creating an eerie, silent symphony of glowing reflections. Larry and Vetra's journey through this extraordinary yet lethal landscape is marked with an often silent, mutual recognition of the planet's cruel splendor. Nightfalls paint the surroundings in a stunning, almost surrealist array of lights and shadows. Luminescent spores waft through the air like ethereal spirits, a spectral ballet of life and death. During these quiet moments, the enormity of their task, the restoration of vital life-sustaining energy, presses heavily upon them. Days pass in a blur of relentless repairs and shared glances. Food and water are continually scarce, driving them to invent new ways to sustain themselves. Larry fashions a small, portable harvester for plant matter, and Vetra introduces him to hardy insect species that provide necessary nutrients. The cavern stretched before them, a labyrinthine maze forged by millennia of unseen forces. Inside, shadows played tricks on their senses, creating the illusion of constant movement around them. The storm's distant roars echoed through the cavern's belly, reminding them of the relentless chaos outside. Larry's muscles burned with each calculated step deeper into the bowels of the cave. His breathing was shallow, the tension volcanoing within his chest. Despite the biting cold now replacing the planet's searing heat, sweat trickled down his brow. Beside him, Vetra moved with an eerie grace, her blue-silver form gliding effortlessly through the darkness. Her yellow eyes were narrow slits, reflective of her heightened senses attuned to the imminent dangers lurking within. They found a small opening that provided a momentary refuge. Larry bent down, examining the ground while Vetra remained alert, her eyes scanning every crevice. The cave seemed alive with its own heartbeat, pulsating with energy that hinted at something both ancient and malevolent. "Anything suspicious?" Larry asked, his voice breaking the grim silence. Vetra tightened her grip on the makeshift weapon she carried, a piece of alien technology that seemed as otherworldly as she. "Always," she replied, her voice carrying a melodic, almost hypnotic quality. Larry could not help but marvel at the conundrum she presented, a being so alien, yet exhibiting a survival instinct so hauntingly familiar. It was that instinct that kept him grounded despite his urge to distrust. Both of them knew they could not let their guard down for even a heartbeat. The translucent creatures emerged from the shadows without warning, phantoms in the dim glow of the luminescent fungi that dotted the cave walls. Their bodies shimmered with a captivating yet menacing luminescence, like spirits born from the planet's core. With each step, The creatures emitted a low-frequency hum that seemed to resonate with the cave, adding to the unsettling chorus of the storm outside. Larry and Vetra simultaneously readied themselves. The creatures moved with an ethereal grace, an unsettling contrast to their sinister intent. They were curious yet predatory, as if driven by the planet's turmoil, reflecting the chaos that had taken over both surface and core. Larry fired his energy blaster, the sharp beam cutting through one of the translucent beings. It dissolved into a cloud of shimmering particles, but this only seemed to agitate the rest. They advanced en masse, their movements synchronizing into a terrifying ballet of death. Vetra channeled the energy from her weapon, unleashing a blue iridescent wave that dissipated another approaching creature. Integrating her innate abilities with the weapon, her strikes held both finesse and raw power. Together, they carved a path through the assault, their movements synchronized despite the distrust that lingered. Amid the frenzy, Larry caught sight of peculiar glyphs etched into the cave walls, their complexity beyond human comprehension. They seemed to teem with ancient wisdom, radiating an energy that momentarily distracted him. Was it possible this cave held more than just physical refuges? Could these glyphs be clues to the planet's true condition and the nature of these creatures? Focus, Larry, Vetra's voice pierced through his thoughts, jolting him back to their immediate peril. At her reminder, he returned his attention to the battlefield around them, narrowly dodging the swipe of a translucent claw. The duo fought with a desperation born of necessity, their contrasting styles creating a dynamic harmony amidst the chaos. Each victory provided only temporary respite, each retreat mapped with strategic precision. They knew they couldn't afford to remain in this arena indefinitely. Eventually, the onslaught ebbed as the last of the translucent assailants shimmered and disintegrated into the ether. Larry and Vetra stood amidst the fading particles, their breathing heavy, their eyes scanning for any remaining threats. "We need to move," Larry said, his voice hoarse from exertion. "Yes," Vetra agreed, but her gaze remained fixed on the glyphs. But not without understanding these. Larry knelt beside her, tracing his fingers lightly over the etchings. To his surprise, the glyphs responded to his touch, emitting a soft, pulsating glow. They seemed to react to both his and Vetra's presence, as if recognizing their combined essence. "We need to decipher these," Larry observed, "but how? This language is alien even to you." Vetra closed her eyes, her fingers traveling over the glyphs with a familiarity that suggested intuition rather than knowledge. Sometimes, understanding comes from feeling rather than thinking. As they pondered the glyphs, the cave walls seemingly began to respond, the patterns evolving to form more comprehensible shapes. A narrative unfolded. A story of balance and rebirth, energy nodes essential to the planet's life force. The creatures were manifestations of the planet's anguish, a defense mechanism of sorts. The message was hauntingly clear. Restoring the energy nodes was paramount to taming the storm, both the atmospheric and elemental turmoil that threatened the planet's existence. Larry felt a chill down his spine, not from the cold but from the enormity of the task ahead. Their moment of understanding was interrupted by a tremor that rippled through the cave floor. The planet's anxiety was palpable, reverberating through its very bedrock. Larry exchanged a glance with Vetra, an unspoken acknowledgement of their shared burden. "We need to find that second energy node," Larry stated with renewed determination. Vetra nodded, her eyes reflecting a complex mixture of determination and concern. "Agreed, and quickly. The planet's core is destabilizing faster than we anticipated." They ventured deeper into the cave, navigating through winding tunnels and passageways that seemed to alter with each passing moment. The planet's sentience was a living, breathing entity reacting to their presence, sometimes guiding, sometimes obstructing. Every step deeper into the cave increased the weight of the atmosphere, pressing down on them with an invisible force. They moved with purpose, yet every heartbeat carried the silent fear of what new horrors awaited them. The translucence of the creatures now seemed almost trivial compared to the deep, resonant consciousness that emanated from the planet's heart. They finally arrived in a vast chamber, its walls lined with intricate, throbbing lines of energy. At the center stood the second energy node, a massive structure pulsating with an erratic beat. It was clearly damaged, fragments of it missing or malfunctioning, casting erratic shadows that danced ominously across the chamber. "Start the repairs," Larry instructed, muscles taut with focus. As they approached the node, the temperature fluctuated wildly, the air shimmering with both heat and cold. Vetra extended her hand, her organic interface aligning with the node's energy patterns. Together, they worked with a silent understanding, their movements precise and synergistic. With each piece reconnected, the node's pulsations began to stabilize. The winds howled like the anguished wails of forgotten souls, battering the entrance of the cavern with relentless ferocity. The once hidden sanctuary had become a prison of shifting shadows, menacing whispers, and clear and present dangers. The atmosphere was thick with electricity, the energy crackling like a malevolent spirit orchestrating the chaos. The very air seemed to hum with foreboding. Larry crouched near the cave's entrance, every muscle tense, scanning the obscured landscape for any sign of the translucent creatures that lurked within the planet's depths. The storm raged just outside, magnifying the oppressive weight of their environment. Drops of glistening sweat trickled down his forehead, merging with the dirt and grime smudged across his face. Beside him, Vetra's form, glowing faintly with her ethereal blue-silver luminescence, provided an unsettling contrast against the dark backdrop of the cave. Her yellow eyes flickered with an emotion closely mingled with fear and determination. "Vetra," Larry murmured, his voice almost swallowed by the shrieking winds. The words carried the gravity of his realization. Every move they made had far-reaching consequences, and their presence here, once perceived as salvation, now seemed to be a catalyst for further crisis. Vetra responded with a series of complex gestures and guttural sounds, indicating an understanding beyond the confines of their linguistic barriers. Her people had long foreseen the tumultuous upheavals this planet was capable of, yet this partnership with an off-worlder had yielded unforeseen reverberations, unsettling the planet's core. The terrain beyond their precarious haven was a tableau of sheer agony. Rivers of molten material bubbled, and seismic shocks seemed almost rhythmic in their intensity, as if the planet bemoaned their presence. It wasn't just a storm, it was the planet's wrath, an elemental fury lashing out in protest of their disruptions. They ventured cautiously deeper into the labyrinthine cave system, their progress marked by an uneasy silence. The rocky tunnel walls shimmered with bioluminescent fungi, casting eerie, phosphorescent light patterns across their path. Every step was tentative, every shadow a potential threat. The translucent creatures, almost specters in their silent aggression, slithered and glided through the darkness, sentinels of the planet's antipathy. In an abrupt moment of stillness, they stumbled upon a cavern that seemed untouched by the surrounding tempest. At its center lay the second critical energy node, a technological relic encased in a crystalline structure. It pulsed intermittently, mirroring the erratic beat of the storm outside. Larry approached cautiously, his analytical mind whirring at full capacity. He examined the node, noting the worn, frail connections that hinted at its failing stability. "If we don't act fast, repairing this might be impossible," he thought, his fingers already moving to dissect the pathway of energy flows. Vetra, understanding the urgency, began to assist, her dexterous movements showcasing her familiarity with the planet's intricate technology. Their collaboration was symphonic. Larry, leveraging his scientific acumen and human ingenuity, and Vetra, channeling her intrinsic connection to her world's energy systems. Yet, with every wire reconnected, every fusion stabilized, the planet's counterattack intensified. The ground beneath them quaked, and fissures opened, releasing noxious gases and further complicating their efforts. It became an endurance race, completing the repairs before the environment consumed them. Larry's thoughts swirled with the harrowing guilt of impermanence. What right did they have to attempt modifications? Yet, the imperative of survival and possible redemption quelled his inner turmoil. Vetra's existence depended on these nodes. Every whisper of advice she provided echoed a wisdom steeped in the cultural and historical facets of her kind. In one heart-stopping instant, a particularly violent tremor dislodged a segment of the cave roof. Immense boulders tumbled down, narrowly missing them. Dust and debris hung thickly in the air, choking the already fragile atmosphere. Amid the chaos, a half-connected circuit flared brightly, threatening to combust into catastrophic failure. Larry, his heart pounding with both exertion and fear, darted toward it, his actions a blend of muscle memory and sheer desperation. Vetra, unflinching in her resolve, provided what assistance she could, operating at the very limits of her abilities. Her every movement synthesized her sorrow for the dying planet and hope for its salvation. The aliens and creatures, both silently watching and aggressively intervening, added to the heightened tension, a cacophony of existential dread and survival instinct. As they worked tirelessly, a shared understanding blossomed. This was no longer just a struggle against the elements or an attempt to bridge alienation. It had become an existential reckoning. The stakes were clear: realign the energies, pacify the roiling planet, or succumb to its violent rebuke. Then came a moment. Clarity. As Larry connected the final component, a resonant hum filled the cavern. Light burst from the node, illuminating the surrounding crystals in a dazzling display of refracted brilliance. The storm outside seemed to falter, if only for a fraction of a second, as if the planet held its breath. Their reprieve was short-lived. The creatures' attacks redoubled, driven by an inexplicable instinct to obliterate this newfound equilibrium. Both Larry and Vetra found themselves fighting not just the planet's fury but ghost-like sentinels intent on ensuring the node's destruction. Every ounce of energy was spent, every strategy enacted, amidst the sheer pandemonium. Vetra's agility and Larry's brute determination meshed in an almost choreographed dance of survival, facing threats both physical and metaphysical. Elemental energies clashed, ancient and new, as they battled for the right to exist within this volatile world. They emerged battered, clinging to the slim victories they achieved with blood and tenacity. Internally, the nodes began to stabilize. Externally, the tempest's intensity ebbed ever so slightly. Their bond, affixed out of desperation, had forged something profound. Trust, interlaced with shared fear and mutual respect. But as the turbulent environment around them began to settle, a new realization dawned. Every effort to stabilize had roiled another aspect of this complex, alien world. What they had perceived as isolated nodes of energy were, in fact, mere facets of a far deeper systemic equation. Eyes met. A silent pact amid the storm's receding wrath and the looming uncertainty of what they inevitably disrupted. The tempestuous skies above the desolate planet were beginning to show signs of relenting. The relentless, purple-hued storm clouds that had been a constant threat now seemed to recede into the horizon, as if drawn away by an unseen force. Larry and Vetra stood at the brink of a moment that would forever alter their existence, their bond now an unbreakable link forged through trials and triumphs. They gazed at the last, fractured energy node, the tangible crux of the planet's life force, a task that required both physical and emotional strength to mend. The harsh environment, the hostility of the planet, and the threats had all culminated to this pivotal moment. Vetra's eyes, those piercing yellow orbs that had once surveyed Larry with suspicion and harsh judgment, now softened with determination and an unspoken trust. Larry, feeling the weight of the situation, glanced briefly at the sky, noting the subtle changes. The once fierce gales were a mere whisper against the barren landscape. This was the eye of the storm, both in nature and in their journey. The planet's core seemed to heave as though it were alive and aware of the monumental task they faced. As they began the painstaking process of realigning the node, every movement felt ceremonious. The technology, at once alien and oddly intuitive, glowed in hues of bioluminescent azure and emerald, casting ghostly reflections on their faces. The touch-sensitive interface responded to Vetra's delicate manipulation, while Larry provided the necessary technical support, patching wires and recalibrating the core's structural integrity. They moved almost in symphony, a dance of precision and reliance. Suddenly, the ground beneath them quivered, a sharp jolt reminding them of the ever-present danger. The fragile node sparked, a harbinger of the critical stage they had reached. Both paused, their breaths synchronous, the culmination of hours of desperate attempts and failures, each setback a step closer to understanding each other's resilience and ingenuity. The quakes of the planet seemed almost reactive, as if the very fabric of the world acknowledged their struggle and offered its own resistance. It was during one of these tremors that Larry noticed a subtle shift in the air. The charged particles, the tangible sense of anguish and desperation that pervaded the atmosphere, began to lighten. The sentinel creatures that had haunted every shadow retracted their ethereal limbs into the recesses of the caverns, their presence no longer a malevolent threat but a silent observer of the unfolding restoration. This partial reprieve emboldened them, and together, they made the final adjustments to the node. Upon the last connection, a surge of energy cascaded through the device, the luminescent veins pulsating with renewed vigor. Larry and Vetra watched, almost in awe, as the node began to synchronize with the remaining planetary network, its glow a beacon of renewed hope. The atmospheric shift was palpable. The storm's rage ebbed, and a gentle breeze swept through the desolate landscape, carrying with it a promise of regrowth and rejuvenation. Despite the immediate challenges overcome, the silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, they stood still, absorbing the magnitude of their actions. Larry could see the metamorphic process in the planet's terrain, the harsh, cracked earth subtly shifting towards a softer, more nurturing hue, as though the very spirit of the world resonated with their success. This was not just a victory over the physical adversities but a testament to the power of their alliance, a blend of human ingenuity and alien wisdom. Vetra's gaze lingered on the horizon, where the deep purple of the skies began to give way to a softer, more welcoming twilight. Larry followed her gaze, understanding that this was only the beginning of a transformation. Pain and tension, once felt tangibly in the air, started to dissipate. The planet, in its own enigmatic way, responded to this union. As they walked away from the restored node, their steps were lighter, their hearts unburdened by the weight of the colossal duty they had fulfilled. The creatures they once feared now watched from a respectful distance, their once opaque forms now tinged with a spectral luminescence, their existence tied heavily to the well-being of the planet now in harmony with their presence. Larry began to understand the profound implications. Their journey had rekindled a dying world, but it had also rewritten the fundamental laws of survival and cooperation. The intricate interdependencies between them, once sharp with distrust, now blended into an unspoken pact of mutual respect and understanding. Every hardship encountered, every experimentation with the alien technology, and every instance of near defeat had sculpted their relationship into something transcending mere survival. As clarity took hold, Vetra pointed towards a cluster of distant, crystalline structures, her people's ancient settlements, now shimmering with renewed energy. She turned to Larry, her expression a blend of relief and skepticism. They had ventured into the unknown, only to emerge not just as individual survivors, but as pioneers of an unprecedented alliance. Their legacy wouldn't be just in the technical feat but in the narrative of cooperation they had weaved. Back at the settlement, they were welcomed by an atmosphere of cautious optimism. The alien inhabitants, once concealed by necessity, emerged to witness the tangible shifts in their environment. The skies, in their nascent phase of calm, shimmered with an ethereal blend of stars and atmospheric particulates that reflected the transformation brought about by their perseverance. For Larry, it was a moment of serene reflection amid the crowding faces of alien allies. They had traversed through turmoil, yet the essence of their journey was now palpable in the very environment that had once threatened their existence. In the aftermath, Larry and Vetra sat beside a bioluminescent lake, which mirrored the renewed sky above them. The lake, once a stagnant pool of unknown chemicals, now teemed with signs of potential regeneration. Ripples danced across its surface, each wave more vibrant than the last. They understood that this was just a single chapter in an ongoing saga. There would be more challenges, more unknown territories, but they had proven that unity could indeed outshine the pervasive darkness. As the planet began its meticulous process of healing, the tangible results of their collaboration were evident. Each restored node symbolized hope and resilience, marking the scars of the planet not as signs of past destruction, but as a testament to enduring strength. The landscape, once hostile and unyielding, offered glimpses of verdant resurgence, patches of bioluminescent flora beginning to reclaim their dominion. Their journey hadn't just saved a dying world, it had illuminated the profound capacity for empathy and cooperation in the face of insurmountable odds. They had discovered potentials within themselves and each other that transcended mere survival. They had become symbols of what could be achieved when seemingly disparate beings come together with a shared purpose. And with that, Larry gazed once more at the transformed horizon, realizing that in even the bleakest of circumstances, unity can kindle hope. If you liked this story based on real events, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like it. Here you can dive into a different reality every day, where anything can happen. Comment below what kind of story you would like to hear here. Thank you very much for your attention. We are the Sci-Fi family.